Good morning. This is Blaine's World webcast that we found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and get more information and listen to previous shows at our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Patrick Clark, author and owner of Lucky Sheep Outdoor Gear, for being my guest today. Patrick, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Give him a big wave. Great, that is Patrick. I should mention that Patrick Clark is a pioneer in natural health and sustaining living. He's the founder of Lucky Sheep Outdoor Gear. And we'll talk about that name. I just love that name. And author of a Rewilder's Guide to Outdoor Adventure, which we'll be talking about as well. He's also he shares simple, eco-friendly ways to reconnect with nature. Through his designs and ideas, Patrick invites people to experience the outdoor as both an adventure and path to healing. And so, Patrick, the first question I always ask somebody when I speak to them on the air is, as a kid, you grew up where?
I grew up in Cullowhee, North Carolina. I'm actually a native of Western North Carolina.
So, as a kid growing up in Western North Carolina, did you always know you wanted to be this author, naturalist kind of guy?
Well, I didn't know, but I did have I grew up like barefoot, walking like ancient Cherokee trails, playing in creeks and streams, and I knew nothing but that. I thought the whole world was just forest and creeks and little caves and rocks and vines to swing. And I thought the whole world was that. It was a really big shock when my family moved away when I was 7 years old to Kansas, and I realized that some places didn't have mountains and creeks and places to go hide and play and build forts and things like that.
So you grew up then mostly in Kansas?
Yeah, then from there on, I was in Kansas. Yes.
Okay, and you were talking, we mentioned this off the air, because it reminds me of a good friend of mine who's also kind of a barefoot kind of person. And have you always been that way? Always like barefoot when you could be?
Well, there was a point where that when I was a teenager, I wasn't really a barefoot kind of guy, but a little later, like early teens, I kind of got into like other things, and then I had a. I mean, this is jumping. This is even like a bigger question, but it's points out how I rediscovered barefoot, after I was a kid. And so I was a teenager, and I felt I I felt like something was missing, and I didn't know what it was. And I went to the library and found a book called "How the Indians Lived." I think that's what it was called. And I was reading it, and it was like one of the things they did was they went barefoot. And so I was like, the first thing I did was I learned how to I taught myself how to make moccasins, and then I wore them. And so moccasins is practically barefoot.
Right.
So barefoot and minimalist shoes. Yeah.
So how did this go over with other people, your folks or school, other people you would hang out with? What was their reaction?
It set me aside in a big way. And that's that's really intense when you're a teenager. I mean, those are the years that you want to fit in and be like everyone. And so, I had to struggle with like wanting to fit in, be like I want to be accepted, and like honor who I was, and like what I was trying to figure out, like find meaning, because everything seemed to, like, all of a sudden, like I realized that I was disconnected from that childhood that I remembered, where I was so happy and with nature, and I was like trying to figure out how to get that back into my life. So no, I went way out on a limb. I mean, I was walking, school was a mile and a half away, and I would like wear my moccasins to school, and I was like a total character. I was just like kind of outspoken, and I was like adamant that I was doing like the right thing and they were wrong.
So how do you then make the transition then from being a kid in school to an adult now where you are now? Was there a shift you made, or you just kept doing what you were doing?
Well, what happened was, it was crazy because I went along that route and kept going that route and learning all kinds of like earth skills and studying Native American culture and archaeology. And I lived right next to Haskell Indian Junior College, which is one of the biggest boarding schools were Native Americans that were sent here from reservations. And I was like really into this whole like the whole Native American, how they thought and lived, and like I would, wanted to like go back in time and everything. But then, I discovered, when I it's a college town with the University of Kansas, and I discovered that there was a program, a major called recreation, and that part of the sub major, what could be outdoor recreation administration. And so I was like, that was like the bridge to bring me like into the modern world, but still have like the path and the values that I was following.
So is that what you studied in college?
So yeah, that is what I did in college.
And so it's interesting. So as a major, then, what did that qualify you to do, or what did it lead to your next step?
Yeah, yeah. So I could have been a park ranger or a camp administrator or a naturalist, park naturalist, or worked with the military and programs. And there was a lot of things I could do, elite, adventure travel and things like that. And yeah, I could have done that, but I ended up like, I mean, I'll just say this. I ended up like I went through that whole thing and I was, like working like seriously gonna do that career. And then and then I didn't do it. Like I got into the magazine. I just had this brilliant idea to start a magazine that was about walking and biking for a greener planet, which was kind of bringing this whole eco lifestyle and nature and thing in a way that was a practical way for people to do something to connect with nature and make their life more rewilded. But you have to remember, this was way before they even had rewilding. They didn't even have a word for what I was doing, rewilding, or even no one was even talking about barefoot shoes or barefoot or anything like at that time. It was way ahead of my time. And so I was like way, way ahead of my time, this whole, even up to then.
And that was pretty cool because how old were you when you started this magazine?
Oh, I think I was like 27 or 28, I think, or so.
And pretty cool in that at that time too, you had no experience in publishing and business.
No, although I had published a book. I had after college, I had gone on an adventure bicycle trip all along the Blue Ridge Parkway, all the way from Washington, D.C. back to Cullowhee, where I grew up in Cullowhee. And I wanted to like ride all the way from there down the Shenandoah Parkway and then down the Blue Ridge Parkway and then like all the way back to like where I grew up.
Very cool.
And
Yeah.
then write a book. So I did all that. I wrote the book. I published the book, self-published in a small way, and I they all sold, and then I got into the magazine, and then I was constantly like adopting new things and moving forward instead of kind of, you know, making. I could have republished the book, but I just went into the magazine.
And even the magazine, that's pretty risky adventure to start a new magazine in kind of new field at the time. And somehow you kept it going for 4 years.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was set up as a nonprofit organization. We had a board of directors, and we had like four national distributors. It was like unbelievably popular for someone who just didn't even know what they were doing. But I had like a big team that like started forming around me, for the art and help with the design and all of a sudden, like, before the internet, like way before the internet, like I was getting this whole like following, and I couldn't believe like people in cities all around were like, really behind it. So I was surprisingly that there was something, people out there that were really interested in the angle I was coming at with like biking and eco-friendly living type things and stuff like that. So it hit it, and that too was ahead of its time. Transportation, green transportation, and like, part of it were like, part of our case, our philosophy was that, instead of building all these roads and having a car culture, we should have like mass transit culture that like, and then you walk and bike for local trips, but you have like mass transit that's more less energy intensive, much less polluting than new highways and new cars. And now it's actually a lot cheaper too. But that didn't. I mean, the biking took off like that was early on, and then like the bike paths and biking became really hugely accepted like shortly during and after the magazine. So I guess it was kind of part of a movement that was budding, but I really helped fuel that movement and give people like the energy, the inspiration and the energy to like get together and know that we're not just crazy thinking about it and stuff.
But even as you mentioned, I'm listening and I'm thinking, it makes sense philosophically, but it's still not a practical solution. In other words, when you mentioned that the bike ride you went on, and I give you credit, but it's still a dangerous thing to ride a bike, and to ride, and then on the parkway, it's just I see people riding, but it seems to be a dangerous thing to do on the parkway, both for the people riding the bikes and the people driving the cars. It's not the parkway was not built for bikes, so
Right,
unfortunately.
right.
I mean, will that ever, even Merriman Avenue, will this ever change, or will it ever the two sides, will they ever kind of coexist?
Oh, right. Yeah, good points. Well, one thing, in my perception, I actually believe that the Parkway is different, way different than Merriman Avenue type environment. And the Parkway actually in some ways is kind of ideal for bikes because cars aren't going real fast. It's not wide enough for a bike on a
Right.
car, but their cars aren't going real fast, so there's a lot of room on the parkway. Like if you're going up a big hill and it's going to be a long time and there's a car behind you, like you can get over way to the edge and the car can go around you. So that's usually pretty good. And when you're going downhill, you're going as fast as a car. So I think the parkway it is actually a greenway and it's actually a bicycle route, without a lot of through traffic and stuff. But I mean, I can see a car, car drivers as you're driving a car, you're sort of perceiving the bicycles as in the way and vulnerable. Yeah, that's always going to be there. We always have to learn how to coexist with each other, just like you're hiking on a trail and there's mountain bikes too, and there's horses too, and you've got to kind of and some trails there's skateboards and all kinds of things, and so you have to kind of learn how to navigate and dance around with each other who's doing their own thing. So yeah, that's kind of there. But yeah, Merriman Avenue, I was early on actually when I was doing the Cocoa Mountain Notes, I was also involved in the transportation task force and developing bicycle paths in Asheville. And so I was part of making Asheville bicycle friendly. And so that's been a big emphasis and an ongoing emphasis ever since the Coca-Cola Notes days, where cities are still working on, more and more improvements to make it more bicycle friendly and stuff like that.
But yeah,
And,
it'd be great if
and
we,
it,
yeah.
it is dangerous. Yeah, it's dangerous to ride a bike. It's no doubt. I mean, it is dangerous. We're not in Europe where they are set up for it. They've been thinking it for so long, and they didn't overdo the cars, and they planned for bicycles and pedestrians. We're not like that, and so it is kind of I can't say it's super safe for everyone, although there are places it is, and then part of Coca-Cola Notes was emphasizing where the bicycle friendly cities are and where you need to kind of go to where it's safer.
So if you would fast forward then to so we run the magazine for 4 years. The magazine is no longer in existence. That takes you into the what 2000s or
Yeah. Oh,
somewhere.
it was like 89 to 94, I think.
Okay. So where did you go from there to where you are now.
So then after that, I became involved in a business that was making meditation and yoga things because I kind of married into the business, and so it was my job to like promote these products, and so I got into this Carolina Morning Designs. That's the name of that business. And then I that's so funny because even though I was in a whole new business, but what was I promoting there? I was promoting how to rewild your body so that you can, because the body mechanics and ergonomics and movement is a part of rewilding, which is in, I talk about that in my book. And so I was in that business. I was pioneering some crazy ideas like how to sit without a chair. Like, chair culture is kind of like car culture, and we're sedentary all the time. And how can we incorporate movement and natural body mechanics into our lifestyle? So I was that's what I was doing there. Doing that, I was promoting uh, movement friendly furniture, and I was actually designing designing new ideas around furniture and things.
So you got from there then into now you started your own company and talk about that company. When did you
Yeah.
start your own company?
And then I got out of that, and then from that company I had all this experience around and confidence around like new ideas and new inventions. I had like a confidence that I could like invent anything that I put my mind to. And so I was like, well, nobody's thought about like a wool sleeping bag. Like I knew, because I knew the market, because part of that business was also natural fibers. So I had been exploring natural fiber, um, indoor products. And I was like, yeah, but no one's doing natural fiber outdoor products. And so it's like, this is for me. This is wide open for me. So I'm going to do it because I discovered the magic of natural fibers, and that was part of what I learned from that experience was natural fibers and how much more health enhancing they can be.
And so when you're talking about natural fibers, you're talking about what?
I'm talking about like I mean, we can go, you can synthetics would be like nylon, polyester, lycra, and things like that. And then natural fibers could be cotton, hemp, wool. Those are the main ones, cotton, hemp, and wool. And you can it could be some other ones like silk, but the main outdoor one is wool. Wool is like wool is even has been for I don't know how long, maybe centuries or maybe even more than that, but they call it the king of outdoor fabric, wool.
So talk about then the process that you then started to manufacture this stuff, or you got somebody to do it for you, or how did you get into selling the products?
So I spent like a few years like I didn't know how to sew or anything, and I had to kind of learn how to sew when I had the idea. I made the discovery that wool works really well outdoors, and it occurred to me that like there I couldn't find anything out there. And so I mean it was actually, I have to say, intimidating. To be honest, it was intimidating, like to have this idea, and then like I didn't know if it would work or not. I just wanted to try it and see. And so I figured out like where to find some wool. Like just finding it was hard. And like the fabric wool, and the insulation wool batting, and the fabric, some kind of wool fabric. And even back then it was even way less available. Like you couldn't find anything anywhere. And so I found the wool. I got a sewing machine. I could sew a little bit, and I made some very rudimentary products. I made a wool sleeping bag, and I made a canvas backpack, and a canvas tent actually. And I made a really crazy like rags. Like I go to the rum store and find like wool sweaters, and I had almost my entire gear was raggy looking, like scrap kind of piece together gear, and I mean, it worked. I mean, I could, like, go backpacking just like anyone else. I mean, I went on groups with it, and they thought I was crazy, but I mean, it worked, and I slept. I mean, it was just so much better in so many ways.
But at the time you were making these just one at a time, is that correct? Just
Well,
one
no,
section?
oh, I'm sorry. Okay, it's a long story. That was just the prototype development. Okay,
Okay.
so I spent like 4 years, like, thinking about it, designing it, testing out my own little rudimentary gear. Then at that point, I was like, okay, I've got to make this. I've got to put this on the market. So that was around 2016, and now by this time, like, everything had evolved. There was a rewilding movement. So there was like a big group of people that identified as rewilders, and they were all barefoot and natural fiber and, like, kind of ancestral diet kind of people, and circadian rhythm people, and grounding and earthing. There was a whole bunch of, like, new things that was there was all rewilding, like little different ideas, like following the sun, waking up with sun, going to bed with the sun, things like that. So there was a ready group of people ready to like, in my mind, they were going to go for it. And so I just I with no funding, like hardly any funding at all, I made one ready to go prototype, and I marketed it, and then I got like several orders from these groups online, on Facebook and stuff. And then from there, I they I grew. I that was how I started. So, like, just it was just a real bootstrap operation, with just, I was able to find a niche market of people who got exactly what I was talking about right away and started buying them. Yeah.
And so when did you start the company then?
That's it. That's when I launched the company in
Oh,
2016. Yeah.
okay, so the name of the company then, I just love that name of the company. Let me get it again. It's Lucky Sheep Outdoor Gear. That's
Lucky
the
Sheep.
name
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
company. How'd you come up with that name?
Oh, well, I was trying to come up with a name, and I was like, I was thinking some crazy things, and then I was thinking, like, I was camping out, and I was looking up at the sky, and I was like, I was going through, like, brainstorming, like, names, and thinking, how does that sound? How does that sound? And I thought something like count your lucky stars, because you're laying in your sleeping bag and you're counting your lucky stars. And so I was thinking lucky star, and then I was like lucky sheep because it's wool, so that's how. And then I was like, yes, that's the name, Lucky Sheep.
So Lucky Sheep Outdoor Gear now. So you're in existence and you have a website for this as well?
Yep. Yes.
And
Lucky-sheep.com. Yeah.
okay, so people go there, what will they see?
Well, now they're going to see a whole line of gear that's evolved over 8 years. And now I have a sleeping bag here. It's one of these. It's like this. So this is called our Rewilder model. And this wool sleeping bag, it weighs 4 pounds, and it is moisture wicking. Like, it's very moisture wicking, very, very like, you will have a sleep like you've never had before, and in this outdoors. And we've got this, and we've got several models, like, where we have multiple sizes and temperature ratings and weights and things like that. So you'll find our featured product, which is the wool sleeping bag, and then you'll find and then from that, I branched out, because, like, once we mastered that, I've got a little team of a few employees. Well, we mastered that, and we got better at it, and then we started, like, exploring. Like, I figured out how to, like, wax fabric so it would be water resistant. Natural fiber. A lot of the complaints around why people don't use natural fiber is because it cotton it is moisture absorbing. And so I had to figure out a way around that. So I invented a way to treat it with beeswax, which is also eco-friendly. So it would be water resistant. So
How many products do you now have?
About 5 or 6 that are our main products. So we have the sleeping bags, and then we have a rain. This is a rain parka, and it's made out of organic canvas, and it's been treated with the beeswax. So this is like huge because people are complaining about the chemicals found in Gore-Tex,
Sure.
other modern synthetic rain gear, and so this is one of the solutions to Gore-Tex, and it only weighs 2 pounds, which is about what a Gore-Tex jacket weighs. And then we have a backpack. Here's a backpack for backpack, which is also wax canvas and very lightweight and very comfortable. And then we have for day hiking, we have a smaller pack for day hiking and using around the city and stuff like that. So
How,
those are the main products that we have.
how many in the future? How many products do you see this moving into? Or do you see this as like unlimited? You add a couple each year? Where do you see this going?
Well, I see a few more products coming, and I don't feel like it should be unlimited because, it's like I think we should stay specialized in just a few things. But there's just a couple more products that I think I'm real excited about as far as like being something other people don't offer. And yeah, because we're trying to stay in that area. Like this is the zone where no one else is doing it, kind of thing. And the other product is here is a prototype. This is like, I mean, this is just on the drawing board right now. Uh, like this is a lightweight wool hiking pants, and these are like way more effective at keeping you at the right temperature when in the rain and in wet weather. And so this is already in big demand, but we're still working, we're still getting good at these other products. So this isn't really on the website yet. So yeah, there'll probably be a couple more clothing items, I think, that will be along, like like maybe a wool undergarment that might go underneath this parka here.
So talk about the fact that you have these products. Do you have a factory you make them in, or where do you produce them?
We have a little shop in Burnsville, North Carolina, and we were completely destroyed in Hurricane Helene. It's been like less than a year, and we're at 100% rebuilt after completely losing every last little thing we owned. And so we have been like working really hard to rebuild. And the funny thing is, like, when we rebuilt and in a small we're renting a little shop here, and we got better at everything because like we had to redo it, like redo all our patterns and kind of reverse engineer from a few of the products that were salvaged. And when we reverse engineered it and we got new equipment that was way better because now we knew what kind of equipment we needed, machines and things. And so somehow we got like, we're at a way higher level than we were before.
Very cool. Let me ask you also, if I can, Patrick, then from aside from running this place where you manufacture stuff, you also then became an author, and you mentioned one of the book earlier, but this is a book that's currently out, A Rewilder Sky. And what was the idea behind writing that book? When did you get that idea, and how long did it take you?
Well, about a couple years after I started Lucky Sheep, I was like, man, all of these ideas need to put together. I blog. That was part of my marketing, was blogging. So I would be blogging about the difference between using natural fiber and how enhances your health and how it protects you from the elements. And so it was through that writing I thought, man, I've got a lot of stuff here, and I'm gonna start thinking of putting it into a book form. And so yeah, I've been writing that book for like around 8 years. And part of the book was like, I would say, well, I would be writing, like back then I was like, when I was first starting, like there was a whole bunch of stuff I had to figure out to make a complete natural fiber outdoor experience, or and so but a lot of things I didn't have. Like I still had a Gore-Tex jacket and things because I didn't know how to not have a Gore-Tex jacket. So I just kept would write the book, and then I have to stop writing so I could like work on inventing, and then I would be working on inventing like with the beeswax things, and then I'd like come up with something, but then I'd have to test it. It wouldn't work, so then I'd go back to the drawing board and keep working on it. And sometimes I thought maybe it won't work. Maybe they're right, it doesn't work. But little by little, I mean, I solved every problem up to this point where I mean, my tent is not natural fiber. Like I the everything but my tent is natural fiber. My clothing, my sleeping bag, my backpack, everything.
Do you still have the blog?
I still have a blog. Yep, I still use that to kind of test my ideas and stuff.
If you could, if people want to get the blog or see the blog, what's the best bet on that?
Yeah, I would go to lucky-sheep.com. That's our website. You'll find our blog there.
Okay, and they can sign up for the blog there.
Yeah, and we're on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and things.
Okay. So all of a sudden, then you're putting out these blog entries. When did you eventually decide to put it together in book form?
It was actually a few years ago. I thought I had it in book form, and I thought I was gonna about ready to publish the book, and so I actually like made it so people could buy a pre-published, buy it before publication. And and then it kept taking longer and longer. I mean, it went 6 more years. I mean, people bought this in 2018, I think, and the book still wasn't there. And then when COVID, I went through COVID. I was working on it during COVID when everything was shut down, and then along came Hurricane Helene, and then I was like, well, you know, there was a lot of, I couldn't do anything during Hurricane Helene either because there was nothing. Everything was being rebuilt and everything. So I worked on it really intensely after Hurricane Helene, and between that and rebuilding the business. And so then it kind of came together about in April when it finally all came together, and I launched it in April.
So the book is now out. If folks want to get this, and again, it's particularly, I think, of interest to people who are interested in some of the kinds of things you're interested in, what's the best bet to get it?
Oh, you can go to our website, lucky-sheep.com, and order it there, and we'll ship it to you there. Or you can go to, if you're in Asheville or around Asheville, you go to Malaprop's bookstore, and you can get them there. And you can get them on Amazon. There's an e version on Kindle, so you can get it there too.
So I'm listening to your story, and it's kind of an amazing story in terms of being a publisher, an author, a man of many, many talents. Where do you see you going in the future? With another book, another company? Where do you see next 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, I love what I'm doing. I feel like I'm just getting started with this. It's I feel like it's taken 8 years to like kind of get everything lined up so that it's like industry standard, and it's like up to par with what people are needing for it to be functional. And the movement is catching up. There's been a resurgence of interest in natural fibers and rewilding and ancestral health, and a growing concern around the chemicals in the environment, the microplastics in the soil and the water, and all the plastic pollution and caused by textiles. And so I'm right now just really going to be going out there and getting the book out there in the world and speaking to people, and getting us I mean, I want Wool Sleeping Bag to be a household word. Most people don't even know, they have no idea. They have no idea that there's such a thing as a sleeping bag that's not one of the modern synthetic down-filled chemically laden. They have no idea that this thing exists. And so the book is just, a platform to educate people and inform people that there's a way that we can actually go in nature and still be not hurting nature. And we've got to find solutions. We've got to have solutions. I mean, just think what has happened in the last 50 or 60 years with the problems with the environment. And there's no solution. The outdoor industry has no solution for it, but recycled plastic doesn't work. And down is they put tons of chemicals on down. You can't even call it a natural fiber anymore. It has so many chemicals in it that are extremely toxic for your health. And PFOS, forever chemicals. There's a big movement against that. And the outdoor industry really, really needs to wake up and get their act together, because natural fibers have a very legitimate place in outdoor gear. It weighs, you know what, you can hike, the argument against natural fibers is they're too heavy, okay? And that's why they're going synthetic, and they think there's nothing out there. But the reason why they think that is because the synthetic fiber industry has been demonizing natural fibers for like half a century, demonizing natural fibers and pushing theirs. That's why people don't know about natural fibers. And so I'm going to go out there and reverse that by educating people about natural fibers and how they really do have a place in our outdoor gear.
I was going to ask you that kind of a final question, and I'll direct this also at my friend Trissa King, who I hope is listening. And she was the person I was thinking who is the big advocate of walking and running barefoot. So everything you're talking about, I think, is right up her alley. And so for people like her or anybody else listening, is there a resource also? Is there an association or group who is there a Western North Carolina Rewilders Association who people have similar beliefs such as yourself? Is there such an animal?
That rewilding movement, there are rewilding groups, but they're kind of there isn't really one big standard one. It's interesting how that movement has kind of split off and splintered off, and it doesn't have that driving force it used to have. So rewilding, how to get rewilding into your life. No, it's I mean, look, you can look up ancestral health. There's a few groups on ancestral health. That's a good word. It's almost synonymous with rewilding. And then there's barefoot groups, and there is an actual barefoot group, so you can get with them, but they don't necessarily know anything about other rewilding other than walking, And so and there is sort of a paleo movement, but the paleo movement is not really that. It's not like what it used to be, when it used to be kind of more fresh, and now it's kind of almost like paleo. A whole bunch of little movements came along and kind of got people into it, and then they kind of just disappeared into the background a little bit, I think. So I mean the best bet is to get on the Lucky Sheep mailing list, and we will be talking about rewilding and offering classes and blogs and things that you can educate yourself. That's probably where I would recommend people.
Well, thank you. I just mentioned that also as say, so another project for you to get involved in, in your spare time, to start this new national. You already started one group, now you can start another group in your spare time. So to wrap up, I'd like to thank you for being my guest on this edition of the Blaine's World webcast. Also, if you just repeat, Patrick, best way to find out more about you and some of the stuff you do is what?
Lucky-sheep.com.
Okay, and I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And one of these days, hopefully Patrick, you and I will bump into each other. That'd be great. Thanks, man.
Okay, thank you, Blair.